This time on Street Rat Garage, we're going to do something a little bit different. About 9 years ago, I took a trip to the Philippines. I was able to do something that not a lot of people have ever done, and that was drive what's called a jeepney. A jeepney is a cross in between a Jeep Willys and a bus as part of the mass transportation system there. Some of this footage is old. It was shot on like an iPhone 3, so some of the footage is a bit not sharpish. So let's have a look at that. Mabuhay, and welcome to the Philippines. For anybody that does not know, the Philippines is an island country located in Southeast Asia. It is in the Pacific Ocean and is an archipelago that consists of more than 7,000 individual islands, and it lies about 500 miles off the coast of Vietnam. Now what we see here is what is called the jeepney. During World War II, the Americans occupied the Philippines, but when they left, they did not take their Jeep Willys with them. So what happened is the Filipinos, they took these Jeep Willys, they extended the frame, extended the bodies, they put hard tops on them, and they put 2 bench seats, one down each side, so passengers will sit side by side facing one another. The jeepneys of today have absolutely nothing in common other than the appearance from their predecessors that came from the surplus Jeep Willys in World War II. These new bodies are totally hand fabricated. The engine, the transmission, the rear end are all surplus, mostly from Japan. Even the chassis, the frame itself is hand fabricated. There's a lot of pride taken in the decoration of each jeepney. Every owner goes out of his way to make his vehicle the most extravagant on the street. Now this is where I come in. The gentleman in white owns these vehicles. My wife has a family member that works for him. And he was kind enough to allow me to drive this jeepney right here. Now we had to do a meeting before we went out, and his other employees had to instruct me on how to operate this vehicle. You would think it would not be that difficult, but there are a few abnormalities to driving a jeepney. I'm going to slow this down right here. Now take note of where he's telling me first gear is located. All the way over to the right and down. Now that makes driving a little bit more difficult. Okay, problem number 2 with driving this jeepney. I am 6'6". Most Filipinos are not. This seat is scooted all the way back as far as it will go. And, well, there's my knees right there in the steering wheel. Fortunately, it has a tiny steering wheel for a great big vehicle. So that is problem number 3. tiny steering wheel.
First light.
And as soon as we pull out and get going, I have problems shifting. This is first to second, I miss. Try it again, get it in second gear. Doing good. Shift from second to third, hit that one. And now we go from third to fourth, which is up and to the left. I missed that one.
Hey, I can hear that. That's 55.
Now, I never asked anybody why this has a reverse shifting pattern, but I would guess that this is a surplus Japanese transmission, and they are right-hand drive vehicles. So I was sitting on the right-hand side of this vehicle. First would be right next to me down, and then I would be shifting a little more properly. Before we go too far, we have to gas up. Now, every gas station in the Philippines is full service. You don't have to pump your own gas here. The service industry here is very good, and they really take care of you. Now, the weird thing about this particular Jeepney is you have to open up the driver's side door in order to fill up the tank, which is not so bad considering most Jeepneys don't even have a driver's side door to begin with.
Escape. Escape. My name is Escape. Escape.
So your navigator, okay? You're your navigator. Ano tawag dito? Yung sumasama sa pasada?
The two gentlemen that I was just introduced to, their names are Scape and Bonbon. These are nicknames. It's not their real name. In the Philippines, everybody has a nickname. These two guys normally drive this Jeepney. One of them will drive it. The other one will sit in the passenger seat and collect the fares from the passengers as they board and depart the vehicle. A Jeepney driver will typically start his morning at 4 a.m. This is when the morning rush hour begins. The afternoon rush hour will not typically end until about 8 or 9 p.m. at night. So these guys are going to work 14 to maybe up to 18 hours a day. The streets in the Philippines are always busy. Here in Metro Manila, they have a population of over 13 million people. The square mileage of Manila is 236 square miles. Now you can compare that to New York City, which has 8,300,000 people with a square mileage of 469. So that's about 4 million more people in half the square footage of New York City. Now what you see here is me collecting the fees and making change. This is something that oftentimes a solo Jeepney driver will have to do all by himself. Another difficulty in driving a large vehicle in an overly populated area would be this particular scenario. I need to make a left-hand turn here. There's traffic all in the street. There is no stop and go light, and there's just people walking everywhere. So I'm trying to push my way through traffic, clear these motorcycles. There's also street vendors all along the side. This car, this Jeepney, does not make turns well at all. It has a very wide turning radius. What we see here is me getting stuck, and I have to back up. Now you'll see a gentleman right here to the left wearing a white shirt. He is not a traffic official. He is simply a guy that has found the opportunity to make a little bit of money directing traffic when they get stuck like I did. We just gave him a few pesos for his help in getting us backed up and making sure we didn't run over anybody. After only 2 hours, I was ready to call it quits. It was over 90 degrees, we have no air conditioning, and I am really cramped up in this thing. So after that 2 hours, we made approximately 200 pesos, which is about $4 US. Our final stop was at Jollibee's, a fast food restaurant very popular in the Philippines. Very good food there. We treated the whole crew to lunch, told them to keep the 200 pesos, and even gave them more than double that amount for allowing us to use their jeepney. I'm sure they could have made more money than I did that day. All in all, it was one of the greatest adventures of my life.